Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of The Bullet. My name is Paul Lathrop. I'm the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. For today's Training Friday show, joining me is Tom Walls of the Firearms Academy of Seattle. Tom, thanks for coming along for the ride today, man.
Always a pleasure, Paul. Good to see you again.
Yes, sir. Good to see you as well. Love it when we can talk. And today I don't know if we're going to get it in within 30 minutes or not. Before we start bringing out our topic, I want to tell everybody who's watching live, you can get in on the conversation too. Comment on either the live Facebook or live YouTube video. And if your comment is relevant, we'll go ahead and put it on the air. We'll discuss it. If you're watching anywhere else, go ahead and comment to Twitter with the hashtag Bullet Podcast. And we'll get your comments up, get them on the air. Tom, the topic we bantered about and we chose for today was team tactics. If you're out in public, or even if you're at home, and that two entirely different situations there, but let's just start with if you're out in public and you've got your significant other with you and something happens. There's several routes we could go. For example, if you're like you or me and your spouse or significant other is a trained person that is carrying, there's one avenue. If your spouse or significant other hasn't made that leap yet and they're not trained and they're not carrying, what happens? Lots of different avenues we can go about this, which is why I don't think we're going to get it done inside of 30 minutes. And before we take off on this, I should also mention that no matter what, you need training. These are advanced tactics we're going to be talking about and something you should definitely be practicing. So I do recommend you get training before and discuss this with the people you train with before you just decide, I know enough, I'm just going to do it.
Well, first off, Paul, we have never made it under 30 minutes when we talk about training.
Yeah.
Because you and I are both passionate about it. And you and I are both a fortunate minority in that we have fairly well-trained, very well-trained, and dangerous spouses to work with. So let's talk about teamwork. Let's talk about what a team is. You've got our situation, which is a very happy extreme. I know I can depend on Diane with my life. Those of you that have seen the podcast before have heard me mention she's an advanced black belt with 4 decades of hand-to-hand training and skills and experience. She is also an advanced senior instructor. We don't have the title, but that's what it comes out to by age, at the Firearms Academy of Seattle, and multiple instructor certificates. And she is demonic in a shoot house. That's the nicest way I can put it. I suspect Susan can turn it on when her boy Paul is in danger. So we have that extreme. You've got the middle, which is another instructor that's well known. She has not given me permission to use her name, so I won't. But she was the shooter. Her husband was the one that wrangled the kids. And then you have the extreme. You just say, maybe it's something at church and some person wants you to walk them into the dark parking lot. You have no experience whatsoever. So the first thing you have to do is communicate. What is your plan? What are your capabilities? I know what Diane's capable of, and on at least 2 occasions that I'm aware of, she has covered me with a weapon in hand. And the happy thing is, nothing happened.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you do? Let's talk about the situation you and I have, the ideal situation. We have discussed different things. We play the what if game that you and I have talked about a lot. What if this happens? We play the who gets stuck with the chair in the restaurant that faces away from the door. She usually defers to me because she knows I get nervous if I can't see the door. But if there are 2 doors, or she's just saying, no, I'm sitting here, I say, have you got that door? Great, I've got that hallway. It's not paranoid. It's just that we don't like surprises. We're paying attention to our surroundings.
Absolutely.
When we see something that's out of the ordinary, and that's the criteria, it ain't normal. I don't know what it is right now. I don't know that it's a threat. I don't know that it's dangerous at all. I'm not being paranoid, but I know it's not normal, and I don't know it is not a threat. So to use Colonel Cooper's famous color code, we'll go from yellow, which is a happy, active interaction with the environment. Like for me, it's like Disney World. I go there and it's visually dense and I want to look at every little thing. And I pay attention to people, hands, activities, and something stands out because it doesn't fit the baseline pattern. You have to look at the environment and engage with it and think about it to get the baseline. When something's not baseline, that's your clue. It can be as simple as, oh, that's weird, and Diane looks. Or she can just like, with her eyes suddenly and stop talking. I know she's paying attention. She's covering my back. And we'll take it from there. You can have all those things, but what do you do if you need to go?
Yeah.
You need to have well, most people recommend this, and we've used this for years, even when our son was grade school. We had a code word. And we've used that code word for real a couple of times. What the code word means is, I see something that's out of the ordinary that we need to take action on right now. No questions, no what's going on, no why are you saying this, without hesitation, right now, with the agreement that if it turns out to be nothing, it's okay. And under those same circumstances, until you know you can do it again. The other part of that, you don't ever cry wolf. Like, I made you look. You're going to lose your effectiveness as a team. There has to be absolute trust. If Diane gives me the code word or phrase, depending on the situation, and we have these planned out, there are things we would never ordinarily say, I'm immediately assuming, until I know otherwise in my bones, that it's okay, that something's going on. If it turns out it's fine, that's okay. No worries. But there has to be that instant response, especially important with kids. And you and I were talking, you and Susan do something similar. You have your own code words and phrases.
Yep.
That imply that there's something, and then after that, you need to have some place to go with it. You need to have kind of a plan. You can't specifically plan for each unknown situation, virtually impossible. But you can have an idea where to go rather than getting in a decision loop going, oh my God, or a denial loop, which is worse. This can't be happening. This can't be happening. This can't be happening. Narrow your decision loop to say 2 or 3 circumstances you can apply without looking for the best actual one and then execute the plan. You know the saying, a good plan now is better than a perfect plan too late?
Yes, exactly right. One thing Susan and I love to do here in Sioux Falls, we love to go eat out. We're both decent cooks. She's an excellent cook. I'm becoming okay. I love to make dinner for her, but we love going somewhere else where they have to do the cooking, they have to do the dishes and all that. But when we go, we've discussed this many times. We have some favorite haunts we go to, and we've talked to the management, or in some cases the owners of these places, and say, look, if something happens, where's your second door? Where's the back door to this place? Because if something happens, we want to go that direction. And yeah, you're right. We have a code word, and we even have a way to, in conversational terms, if Susan says 9 o'clock, I'm looking. If she,
there you go.
So yeah, the code word is usually set at a little higher volume, and it's repeated 3 times, and not quite at range voice, but it's repeated 3 times quickly, so there's no confusion, and we are both in go mode after that.
That's perfect, especially since you've got something consistent that you've agreed on. If somebody says to you if she says to you 9 o'clock, you know exactly what she's talking about. If she said 0900, or if she said Mickey's hand is at, the consistency of language is important. And again, goes back to never crying wolf. It means something. It's easier with an adult. If you're in charge of small children, that can be a problem. One of the things that Diane and I experienced early on in our martial arts life is she would be with her friends or I'd be with my friends and something would happen. And this actually happened more than once. They go to whoever was being, oh yeah, well, my friend Tom's got a black belt. He'll kick your ass. You can, great. Thanks ever so much. I don't need that. I like the anonymity, and I certainly don't want it to be a challenge, which that would be. Diane's had that happen with her girlfriends, especially if they've had, a couple. Children can be even more so. So if you've got a small child, probably not a good idea to make a big deal of carrying your gun when they're around with you out in public.
Right.
When they get older, first teach them the code word, and it means right now, I'll explain later, I promise, but, and then you need to practice that. And when you practice code words, say, this is a drill, just like the military. This is a drill, code word. And then you can see how the movie, hey, what if, oh, this went well, let's try this again, maybe make this change. But if you say it without saying that this is a drill first, you're on. We had this situation happen with our son when he was 10-ish. Middle of the Sunday afternoon, downtown Portland, Oregon. It was right after a workout at our master's dojang. And we're at the Saturday market, and it's cool. There's people, and there's vendors, and there's food, and there's visual stuff. And the three of us are just bopping along. And across the street, which was blocked off for pedestrian traffic only, we see a group of 4 or 5 young heroes. And they all of a sudden, from across the street, focused on us at the same time. Diane and I saw it. We called the single code word. At that time, Ian was training martial arts, but he wasn't of any size to be effective. And we formed a defensive triangle with him in the safe spot. And we made eye contact with these young heroes, who immediately broke eye contact with us. And from coming halfway toward us, they went back to their side of the street and moved on. It was an ideal situation because nothing happened. Just the awareness of it. But the fact that we had trained him, that he knew to do it right away without question, and we would explain it later, and he trusted us to do that, maybe something, it made a more pleasant day, let's just say that much.
We get a couple comments in here real quick. George Geller says, I only eat at the restaurants where cops eat. And then Charlie Cook replies to that. He goes, Dunkin' Donuts?
When I was a reserve cop, we caught that. Unfortunately, a few years ago, there were 4 cops off duty eating at a restaurant, and they were all murdered by a guy. Oh. So maybe that's not the best place. That brings up something, too. Cops tend to be bullet magnets, unfortunately. Yes. It grieves me no end. One thing you need to discuss with your partner, regardless of if they're highly trained or untrained, if they're willing to participate with, making the phone call, which here's a piece of gear, you both need to have cell phones, or if they're willing to participate with laying down a blanket of pepper spray as a barrier or whatever, you need to discuss separating. You need to discuss splitting off. There was an active shooter here in Washington State. It's been 3 or 4 years now. Father's Day, up around Olympia at a Walmart. And a gentleman named David George, this was written up by Masad Ayub in American Handgunner, so I'm not outing him. David George was in a situation, recognized it as an active shooter situation, and he and his wife had a plan. They talked about it before. His wife was to take their child and to move away from him because he also became a bullet magnet. It turned out that he saved a lot of lives. But they had a plan. You don't necessarily have to both be shooting. Who makes the phone call? Can they describe where you are? Do you have a rally point? If you're going to split up, where are you going to find each other? Do you both have cell phones with each other on speed dial? Hi, honey, where are you? Are you okay? Where are the kids? That's the sort of thing you need to talk about. And it's not pleasant to think that something can happen. Odds are it won't, but it's not the odds, it's the stakes, as Tom Gibbons likes to say. Absolutely, it's not the odds, it's the stakes. Have a plan. You don't need to discuss it every day. But if you're aware of what's going on and agree to do that, it's going to be a lot easier to make that action happen under stress and under the chaos of any kind of armed or violent encounter.
And one thing you and I both have going, we're both, I'm going to call us alpha males. We're both, traditional male figure. We want to be the one in charge. We want to be the one. We're the protectors. And we're also the ones, if there are bad guys, we're to an extent, we're the bad guy attractors. The wives, not so much. And that's one thing that Susan and I take into account in our plan is we separate and she becomes armed and they're not paying attention to her. And so she's out at low ready and I'm trusting on her to be able to get the drop and get business taken care of.
Play that. Diane and I had one of our nothing happened situations. It was off the strip in Vegas late at night. It was a shot show between one dinner thing and going back to the hotel, the fringe area that we talk about so much. Again, long story short, the point being, dude came up and started verbally engaging me, and Diane, as per how we practice, is off in a tactical situation off his shoulder. Law enforcement calls it cover contact officer. I was a contact officer in that situation, that role. I was verbally engaging this gentleman. So my attention is here. Diane's off at a right angle on his shoulder. If I'm here, she's here, with her right hand behind her leg with a knife. He never saw it. He never paid attention to her. And she's looking all the places that I'm not looking. Rather than both of us facing on this guy, she's got a broader view, still within a step and a half, but she's looking around, seeing if there's a partner. Bad guys run in packs like jackals. Mm-hmm. They don't pay attention to the female, and I find that to be a very powerful tool.
Well, and I don't know if you have this experience or not, but I've trained a lot of people to drive truck. I've more than 50 in my career as a truck driving trainer. I had more than 50 people get in my truck, and I trained them from just getting their CDL to the point where they were ready to get their own truck and drive on their own. I've trained both men and women. What I will tell you is women are more in tuned and less, they don't get tunnel vision quite as badly as guys do. Guys can get really wrapped up in the physicality of what they're doing, and they can focus, drill down on just one thing. Ladies are a lot more wide open all the time in my experience. Is that something you found too?
I would have to admit that we as males, I'm going to blame it on biology, but I have the ability to override my behavior of biology if I choose. We get ego invested in it. It's a challenge to my maleness. It's on a more basic, lower level. It's a challenge to my territory or a challenge to my authority. When you are working with a partner, when you are working with a team, you have to have the same goals. If we have an encounter, dude comes up, engages me, and he's maybe physically threatening, my goal is not to dominate him. My goal is to protect my partner. That is my goal in peaceful life. That's my goal in any violent encounter. My job is to take care of Diane. Her job, she tells me, is to take care of me. I can't do that if I'm wanting to look good. If it's like, hey, dude, I'll tell you this. I carry a throwdown wallet. It's a little folding money clip with the bills exposed. I put a 20 on the outside. You can also see a credit card. Now, that credit card expired 5 years ago. You can see it. And I'll give it up. Maybe between 20 and 50 bucks in there. It's cheaper than the paperwork and the lawyer. Mm-hmm. Hey, sir, I'm sorry I insulted you. We talked about this once. The my bad 20. Hey, that's my bad. Go buy yourself and your buddies a drink on me. Whatever that takes to get out of that situation. And if I toss it to the ground slightly to one side that they have to go that way to get it, I'm going to go that way out of here, and I'm taking my wife with me. There is a class that we teach at FAS, and there's some other good ones in the country. It's called Active Shooter Interdiction. And just like we do you do. And you remember there's one scene where you have the store and people are running out of it screaming, he's shooting, he's killing people, and you as the student are armed and have to decide what you're going to do. There's one student, when I was role playing one time, and she chose not to engage. She chose not to go in. She caught some crap for that, and it was wrong, and I'll tell you why. In the debrief, she explained her priorities and her mission. She's the mother of 10.
Ooh.
She has 10 children. Some are still at home, some are out, and she has a bunch of grandkids. And she has a husband, and every one of those kids needs mom and grandma. And that husband needs a wife. And her priority was to be there for them more than it was to be a hero and go in and put down bad guy that was murdering somebody else's grandma. And I can't disagree with that. You've absolutely got to have your priorities in place, and that will dictate your behavior and your training.
Yeah. And I'm going to get into trouble for this. I just know I am, and
Oh my goodness, Paul!
The email address, paul@politicsandguns.com, or you can comment and give me grief. Either way, Colonel Cooper is widely revered, and I like a lot of his stuff. One thing he says that I disagree with and will disagree with my entire life, he uses the sheepdog thing. I detest that. I do not like that. I carry for Susan. When my kids were of the age, I carried for them. But I don't carry for you. I don't carry for anybody else. I've been through active shooter interdiction. I did go in there because it's part of the class. I was actually the one that drew that situation. And by the way, in active shooter interdiction, I was killed once by Marty Hayes in a really ugly, violent way, but that's neither here nor there. We don't all need to be sheepdogs. You have your own reason for carrying. You have your own reason for entering the firearms world. That reason is your reason. Don't let somebody else make your reason that you're going to serve the general public if you don't want to do that. If you want to do that, become a policeman.
That's a difference, really. When I was a cop, it was my job to go and engage. As a citizen now, well, cops are citizens, let me rephrase that. As a non-law enforcement officer, my job is to take care of me and take care of mine. My wife deserves to have a husband. My life means something. I'm not alone in my life. I have dear friends. I have people that care about me, and I would hate to remove someone they care about from their life. And I would hate for my wife to go on alone without me when it wasn't totally necessary. That sheepdog thing, by the way, might make an interesting topic because I have a different take on it, although I understand where you're coming from. A little bit different spin on the definition. So I just throw that off to the side, put it on your maybe list sometime if you want to find something we can we spend that half an hour on. But yeah, it's a matter of what are your priorities. If I can do something with a reasonable amount of safety, yeah, if there's the traditional busload of nuns and orphans, yeah, everybody's got to die. I could say Diane would be upset if I didn't. You can what if that. So it's always a matter of each individual circumstance. But the better, I think, the better you have your priorities defined within yourself, and the more you what if about it. Should I have in that guy's place? How would I react? The more likely you're going to find an acceptable solution to a situation, to come up with an acceptable plan.
I want to get a couple comments in here again. This first one from John. We do not have qualified immunity. Only the police have it. That is absolutely true. And if you extrapolate this out to an active shooter situation, you've really got to do some tactical calculus very quickly. Again, Massad Ayoob, who took the active shooter interdiction course with me, he was a student in that course. How many people can say they took a course where Massad Ayoob was a student with them?
Well, you got me on that.
Anyway, you have to do a little bit what I call tactical calculus. Masada Yub says there's a lawyer tied to every bullet that leaves your firearm. And you go into a crowded place. My specific thoughts go to this situation where there's a market and there's a person in there actively shooting people. You walk in there, if one of your rounds misses and hits somebody else, there's going to be a lawyer coming after you. If not, there's going to be extra bodies. You need to do that calculus in your head. Is it worth it? And no, you cannot. You do not get the. He was just trying to help, and he was. That doesn't apply to us. Only to people with sworn officers.
Yeah. There's the well, John. Let me politely and gently disagree with you a little bit. And that would be on the concept of qualified immunity. Technically, you are correct, and I agree with you. The concept of qualified immunity is that an officer, if acting in policy and within the law, performs an act, they are immune from criminal prosecution for it. And that's a good thing. I happen to be a fan of qualified immunity. Otherwise, cops will be constantly second-guessing themselves. And we're starting to see that in the last year or so with this defund the police nonsense that's turning out as many of us predicted it would turn out. With qualified immunity, you know the rules and you're acting within policy. This is where training for non-law enforcement folks comes in real handy, because you are learning the rules of engagement. Masada Yub's MAG 40 class, his legal stuff, is the gold standard for this. Can I shoot somebody when they're running away after they tried to hurt me? Can I shoot somebody for a crime of property? Can I use deadly force, lethal force, or violence in these circumstances? Those are the rules that we have to abide by. The cops also have, on top of that, written policy, and that can be, let's just say I'm glad I don't have to deal with it anymore. It's very, very complicated and a lot of pitfalls with it.
Let me get one more comment in here real quick. This one from Robert over on the YouTube side. My wife's job is to scream and panic while I do the pew-pewing.
When in danger or in doubt, run in circles, scream and shout.
Yeah, I
suspect.
If nothing else, your wife's job should be to get on the phone and get help on its way to you.
And again, we talked about everyday carry a few weeks ago. So she's got to have a phone. She's got to know where she is to be able to describe it. She's got to have the presence of mind to be able to communicate clearly.
Yeah.
And again, not everybody's a shooter. Not everybody is willing to commit that kind of violence. But a lot of people, barring that, are still willing to put themselves in harm's way to protect innocent life. And these are some of the things those folks can do. I'm a fan of pepper spray. If you've got someone that just cannot stand the idea of touching a gun, how do they feel about pepper spray? Not a fan of tasers or those little stun gun BS things. Tasers work. I've been tased more than once, and it hurt as much the second time as it did the first time. But you're limited with range and number of shots. Pepper spray is a great way to discourage somebody. I've been known to carry a bright flashlight walking in dark parking lots, and somebody comes up. 200 lumens in the face is a great test. If they keep coming, it's articulable. But having something like that, non-lethal, non-injurious kind of thing, some people can accept a lot more easily than they can accept a blade or a gun.
Yeah. I personally, I'm getting older. I do not carry a knife anymore, other than a folding pocket knife, just because I need it as a tool occasionally. I do not carry a knife as a weapon anymore because I can't traditionally fight anymore. I'm not going to ever get into a fist fight for the rest of my life. I can just about guarantee that. I do carry flashlights. Honestly, one of the things that for deterrence that I like, I'm with you on the pepper spray. There is one there was one I had for a while. I'm not going to recommend it anymore because it's just, you've got to very closely follow it, and they go bad very fast. There was a pepper spray that had indelible ink.
I've heard of those.
that was in it mixed in with it, but they only are good for like a year, and then they become super glue inside the container and totally worthless. So
I'll carry various things. I've got my keys on a Kubotan, mostly because it's a great way to carry my keys. I've had training sticks and knives, but because of that training, I have no interest in getting in a knife fight. Mark McYoung gave me an epiphany one time training with him, is use your knife to cut your way out of the fight. Inflict some damage and leave. There is no upside on a knife fight. And that's pretty much the only reason I carry one. But I carry one that I can access from either hand.
yeah, I would rather do everything I can to stay out of that range.
That throwdown wallet, get rid of that thing. Yeah,
Yes.
just go. It's a lot
Yes.
cheaper than your copay at the hospital or the attorney fees when you're charged with something that you didn't want to have happen.
Absolutely. Robert, I believe Robert, I'm going to get a couple comments in from him. I think Robert is in New Jersey. Let me get he's got two more comments to put in. Speaking of the phone, that would require her to be able to unlock her phone in a timely manner. There is that.
Yeah, or not access the phone at all, so you got what you got.
And then he also says, I always carry a knife and usually carry Palms. That's a pepper spray.
Yep.
Hopefully very soon, 9mm. I did see a post on AmmoLand today that there are people in New Jersey that are actually getting their permits. It's taken 6 to 9 weeks, but there are actually permits going out in New Jersey, which is a
That's
very,
the best
very
news
good
I've
thing.
heard all week.
I want to go to John. He says the knife laws in Delaware are insane. Yeah, and
John,
knife
I was
laws
born in Delaware, man. Got family there.
knife laws are very much like concealed carry laws were in the 90s. It just, you got to very much zero in on where you got to know what the law is where you are. And if you're going to be somewhere else, you got to know the laws there. And that includes within the same state, sometimes city to city.
Knife laws don't have that more uniform, what's the word I'm looking for? Appearance? That's not it. Anyway, they vary so much, even within some states. We often recommend the website handgunlaw.us.
Yes.
To look at the various states. They have a disclaimer. They try to be up to date. They do a very, very good job of it. Knife laws and knife rights are a step behind gun rights, as my understanding is.
Yeah. I need to get I need to get the folks from Knife Rights back on.
That would
not
be
too
awesome.
distant future, because they're and I'll be seeing them when we get down to Gun Rights Policy Conference the end of September. But quite often, one of their catchphrases, they are the second front on the defense of the Second Amendment. Let's face it, a knife is an arm. It's a piece of armament, and so it should be. It should absolutely be covered under the Second Amendment, in my opinion. So,
I know certain armed citizens defense networks, not insurance, but something that will aid in your legal defense, that have in fact defended citizens who use blades for self-defense, not just firearms. Perfectly viable thing. In close with somebody, if I had to fight up close with somebody, I would take a knife over a gun. Now, when I say close, I mean like hands-on distance, but
yeah.
I'd rather not have it happen at all, mind you.
Well, we're as I knew we were going to be. We're about 5 minutes over. We're getting more
I
comments
should-
coming in, but I'm not going to be able to get to them today. So
You need to calm down. We need to put money on.
yes.
I need to de-escalate your butt.
We do need to run because Amanda's show now is coming up in 25 minutes. I've got to give up the
Don't
airwaves
get off,
so Women
Amanda.
for Gun Rights can come on. But oh wow, no, I got to get this one in. I got to get this one in just because it's a great point. A knife never runs out of ammo.
Yep.
It
Just
can
don't
get
use
dull
that
though.
sharp knife to cut your sandwich and stuff.
A knife can absolutely get dull, and I do. I keep one right here. I've got one a folder that's right here at my desk. I usually keep it in my pocket, but I emptied my pockets before I went on the air. So, all right, we need to run, folks. Tom, thank you for joining me. Is there anything over at the Fireworks Academy or Firearms Academy of Seattle you want to plug today?
We make some joyful noise on a regular basis. I'm looking at the calendar here. Check the website, firearmsacademy.com. We've got, in mid-September, we have Steve Fisher coming back for 3 days. Looks like we've got a handgun diagnosis class, shooting on the move with a handgun, and shooting on the move with a carbine. So check that out. Steve is one of the best trainers in the U.S., and we're very pleased to have him back on a fairly regular basis, along with our own stuff.
Very cool. Have you got another active shooter interdiction course on the books for yet this year?
Actually, I have the calendar right here. Let me look through. I don't believe so. Looks like we're looking at 2023 before we have that again.
Okay. If you can get to an active shooter interdiction course, specifically one with the Firearms Academy of Seattle, that's the one I took. I've said it before. I'll say it again, and I'll say it a million times. I learned more. I had been to several classes before I went to that class. I learned as much in that class as I learned in all the rest of my classes combined. That is a stupendously wonderful class. So
we'll keep you busy.
Yes, absolutely. Folks, that's going to do it for us today. Please come join me noon Central Time tomorrow when we have the weekend edition of the Bullet, when we go through the weekend review. Tony Simon and Mike Piwowarski will be joining me tomorrow. There may be one more. We just haven't booked yet. But at the very least, those two will be joining me. Thanks, everybody, for watching, and we will see you next time.